Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Tathastu-ICS. As you know, Tathastu-ICS is running a Prelims Aadharshila program, and as part of that, I am taking the history portion. And in history, we are running a series of lectures dealing with Dandi to Azadi. So, in first lecture of Dandi to Azadi series, I had discussed why Congress was forced to launch Dandi March and what were the conditions at that point of time. ऐसा क्या हुआ था कि कांग्रेस को डांडी मार्च लॉन्च करना पड़ा. We had discussed also about साइमन कमीशन, थोड़ा सा हमने साइमन कमीशन की भी चर्चा की थी. Then we had also discussed about the Dandi March, that is the journey of Gandhi ji from Sabarmati Ashram to Dandi to break the salt law. We had also discussed why salt was chosen, why only salt law. There were other laws also which could have been violated, but salt law को ही गांधी जी ने क्यों चुना था, इसकी भी हमने चर्चा की थी. Then we had also discussed how the British government reacted to this. Good evening everyone. Good evening everyone. So how the British reacted to this? As part of this, Gandhi ji was arrested and he was kept in the prison. Then there was this raid on Dharsana salt works which was being led by Gandhi ji, but in between only Gandhi ji was arrested. Gandhi ji को बीच में ही arrest कर लिया गया. Good evening everyone. So when Gandhi ji was arrested, who led the raid on Dharsana salt work? It was Sarojini Naidu, it was Imam Sahab, it was the son of the Gandhi ji, Manilal. These three people led the raid on Dharsana salt raid. तो ये सारी चीजें हमने लास्ट क्लास में डिस्कस की थी. आई एम जस्ट रिवाइजिंग यू पीपल इन 2 minutes व्हाट वी हैड डिस्कस्ड इन लास्ट क्लास. ठीक है, तो हमने लास्ट क्लास में ये सारी चीजें डिस्कस की थी. हाँ, मैं इंग्लिश में पढ़ाऊंगा अभी, मोस्टली इट विल बी इन इंग्लिश. हिंदी का अलग चैनल है तथास्तु का, उस पर इंग्लिश हिंदी में पढ़ाते हैं. इस चैनल पे मोस्टली इंग्लिश में पढ़ाते हैं. इन बिटवीन में थोड़ा बहुत हिंदी यूज कर लेता हूं. इन एडिशन टू दैट, what we had discussed is how this epic salt march or Dandi march was covered in the international media. There was a journalist named Webb Miller of United Press who had covered, he was an American journalist who had covered this salt march. And when he had covered this salt march, basically this whole national movement or whole this salt march itself became a transnational issue. ये पूरा वर्ल्ड वाइड इशू, ग्लोबल इशू, ट्रांसनेशनल इशू बन गया. इट डिड नॉट रिमेन जस्ट अ नेशनल मूवमेंट बिकॉज इट वॉज कवर्ड इन मोर देन 100 न्यूज़पेपर्स अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड. तो यहां तक हमने डिस्कस किया था. देन वी हैड ऑल्सो डिस्कस्ड तथास्तु ICS हिंदी. तथास्तु ICS हिंदी का चैनल है स्तुति, उस पे हम पढ़ाते हैं हिंदी में. तो एज आई वाज डिस्कसिंग कि व्हेन गांधी जी वाज अरेस्टेड, देयर वाज अ लॉट ऑफ प्रेशर ऑन द गवर्नमेंट टू एक्ट. क्यों? बिकॉज दिस मूवमेंट वाज गोइंग इन फुल थ्रॉटल. देयर वेर वायलेशन ऑफ सॉल्ट लॉ, देयर वेर वायलेशन ऑफ other land revenue laws, there were no chowkidari campaign was launched, then no chowkidari tax, then then violation of forest satyagraha. Basically forest satyagraha were launched to violate the forest laws. So basically salt, forest, revenue, chowkidari, all these things were going on. ठीक है, तो उसकी वजह से there was pressure on the government to act, and because of that pressure government arrested all the leaders of the Congress, including Gandhi ji, Jawaharlal Nehru, everybody. T. Rajagopalachari, all these were arrested. After the arrest of these leaders also, movement was still going on in full throttle, and there was huge repression by the government. Government काफी repress कर रही थी, लेकिन फिर भी movement चल रहा था. So at that point of time, the Viceroy Lord Irwin, he proposed that देयर शुड बी अ राउंड टेबल कॉन्फ्रेंस। ठीक है, तो राउंड टेबल कॉन्फ्रेंस की बात हुई। कब बात हुई राउंड टेबल कॉन्फ्रेंस की? तो वी आर स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम हेयर। निखिल, ये बहुत पतला है, बहुत थिन है, मोटा चाहिए। ये यही है। करेक्ट, थैंक यू। तो इन जुलाई 1930, yes, गांधी, सरोजिनी नायडू, ऑल दिस वी विल डिस्कस वन बाय वन। ऑल राउंड टेबल कॉन्फ्रेंस अभी हम डिस्कस करने वाले हैं। तो इन जुलाई 1930 वाइसराय इरविन proposed this idea of round table conference, and he deputed two leaders. One was Tej Bahadur Sapru and other was M.Y. Jacker. So he deputed this Sapru and Jacker to negotiate with Congress to reach some settlement. कांग्रेस के साथ आप negotiate कीजिए और एक settlement reach कीजिए, so that Congress can participate in the round table conference. When Sapru and Jacker negotiated, as part of that, both Nehrus, Jawaharlal Nehru and Motilal Nehru, they were taken where? They were taken to meet गांधी जी। गांधी जी से मिलने के लिए उनको जेल ले जाया गया। Both Nehrus were taken to गांधी जी to discuss this scheme that can Congress participate in the round table conference. Good evening. Can Congress participate in the round table conference? But no settlement could be brought. कोई settlement उसके पार्ट पे नहीं हो पाया। So when this happened, after July, in August 1930, this meeting happened in jail itself between Gandhi ji and both Nehrus, correct? But no settlement could be reached. कोई भी settlement नहीं हो पाया। And who were the people who were given this responsibility? As I told you, Tej Bahadur Sapru and M.R. Jaykar. These were the two leaders who were given the responsibility to negotiate with the Congress by the Viceroy. So when this negotiation failed, so Congress did not participate in the first round table. Accordingly, first round table conference started in the last of 1930 itself, that is from November 1930. Okay, no problem. Since I am speaking in English, Telugu, I think you don't have any problem. So first round table conference from November 1930 to January 1931. As Congress could not be persuaded, as any settlement could not be reached, so Congress did not participate in the first round table conference, which was held in the London from November 1930 to January 1931. If we see first round table conference and all its detail, The first question arises is, what was the place? Place was London. Second, who inaugurated this? जॉर्ज V. जॉर्ज पंचम जो थे, जो ब्रिटेन के राजा थे उस समय, he had inaugurated this first round table conference. Then next thing is, who was the chairman? It was basically the prime minister, Ramsay MacDonald. Ramsay MacDonald. So Ramsay MacDonald was the, he inaugurated this. He inaugurated, and who presided over? He was the chairman of this first roundtable conference. Then the question arises, okay, no problem. It's okay, good, Rohit. So let's focus here. So it was held in London. George V inaugurated this. Ramsay MacDonald, the Prime Minister of Britain, was the chairman. Now the question arises, who all participated in this first roundtable conference, right? So if we see, there were around 80 delegates. There were around 80-90 delegates who had participated in this. Like 16 delegates were from British Parliament, 16 were from our own princely estates, Indian princely estates, and another 58 were from the Indian political parties, Indian political parties plus Indian communities. So total, if you do, it is around 90. So basically there were around 90 delegates in the first roundtable conference. Correct. Ambedkar was present in all. So if we see this, now the question arises that who were these 58 people? The 58 people, 58 Indian delegates who were attending, इनमें कौन-कौन थे? So if we keep here, Muslim League was one of them. Its leader including Jinnah, Aga Khan, all these participated. Then there was Hindu Mahasabha. Hindu Mahasabha, it also participated. Madan Mohan Malviya was there. Then there were other communities like untouchables, depressed class, or rather untouchables you can say, depressed class. Depressed class. Who represented them? Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Ambedkar साहब थे उनको represent करने के लिए. Then there was this Indian Liberal Party. Indian Liberal Party. Who represented Indian Liberal Party? Tej Bahadur Sapru. Tej Bahadur Sapru was the one who represented Indian Liberal Party. Good evening, Smart Studies. So if we see, in addition to this, there were also leaders who represented Sikh community. All these were represented in the first roundtable conference. One party which was not represented was Indian National Congress. This was a big omission. Yes, Tej Bahadur from Liberal Party. One party which was not represented in first roundtable conference was Indian National Congress. So this was the problem with first roundtable conference. But then the question comes, what all issues were discussed in first roundtable conference? What all agreements were reached in first roundtable conference? And if all agreements were done, all discussions were held, then why it failed? Why there was no considerable achievement in the first roundtable conference? So let's see what were the agreements, what were the issues which were discussed in first roundtable conference. So if we see the agreements reached, the first issue was the issue of dominion status. issue of dominion status. On this issue, there was in general an agreement among all the participants. The another issue was that except defense and finance, all ministries to be handed over to Indian ministries, you can say, or the government of the day. Basically, these were the two things which British were not keen to leave for the Indian ministries. So except defense and finance, all ministries to be handed over to Indian ministries. This was also one thing on which there was an agreement, correct? In addition to this, there was another issue which was floated by Tej Bahadur Sapru. The idea of all India Federation. The idea of all India Federation floated by Sapru ji, Tej Bahadur Sapru. Tej Bahadur Sapru was from Indian Liberal Party. Direct question has been asked in prelims. Who was the leader of Indian Liberal Party? Answer is Tej Bahadur Sapru. So this idea of all India Federation was floated by Sapru ji. So these were three things on which there was in general agreement in the first roundtable conference. There was another issue on which there was not much agreement, and that was the issue of separate electorate. No agreement on issue of separate electorate, correct? So these were the basic things which happened in the first roundtable conference. There were agreements on these three issues: dominion status, all departments except defense and finance, and then this all India Federation, where there would be a central government and then the different states will form its federal units. And there was an agreement that yes, princely states also agreed, Muslim League also agreed. There was in general an agreement. There was no agreement on the issue of separate electorate. Separate electorate we will discuss in the second roundtable conference also, that what is separate electorate, what is joint electorate, what was the demand of the Ambedkar, why Gandhi did not agree to this, we will see in the second roundtable conference. Now we will see that despite having all these agreements, why it failed. Why it failed? So if we see the results, it is generally said that there was no considerable achievement of first roundtable conference. There was no considerable achievement of first roundtable conference. When so many people participated, when so many issues were discussed, why no considerable achievement? Because it was realized that the party which represents the people of India, the party which commands the popular support of the people, the party behind which people runs movements, the leaders of the party who are being kept in jail, they are the real leaders, they are the real voices of Indian people. Good evening, Jamshed. So they are the real voices of the Indian people. You cannot keep them in jail and discuss the constitutional scheme of the country, discuss the future government of the country. Without Congress, you cannot negotiate any constitutional scheme, any future system of government. Congress has to be there. Why? Because Congress represents the will of the majority of the people, and that's why it became meaningless. That's why this first roundtable conference became meaningless, because it was agreed that a constitutional discussion, a constitutional discussion to which Congress is not a party is meaningless, because Congress is the real representative. Congress represents the will of the people. And then from this followed that an olive branch has to Congress has become an imperative. So an olive branch to the Congress, what does it mean? A goodwill gesture. Yes, representatives of people were absent. The real representatives, Congress represents those people. So olive branch means a goodwill gesture, a gesture of peace and conciliation towards Congress. That had become imperative, that had become mandatory, that had become necessary. Why? Because you cannot discuss any scheme for India, any constitutional scheme, without the representatives of Congress. Suppose you agree on any constitutional scheme, you go to this to the people, and then people reject this, then people start movement. What is the point of having all this discussion when people will not be accepting this? So there was a sense of sanity which prevailed among the British, that Congress has to be included in the next roundtable conference. That's why it is said that in first roundtable conference there was no considerable achievement. Now let's see the second roundtable conference. This was all about the first roundtable conference. Now we will see the second roundtable conference. So as I told you, after the completion of first roundtable conference, and after this understanding that an olive branch has to be provided to Congress, a goodwill gesture has to be provided to the Congress, all the leaders of the Congress were released from jail without any conditions attached. That is unconditional release of all the leaders of the Congress. Why? Because British started understanding this, that it was not possible without the leaders of the Congress to negotiate any constitutional scheme of things. And that's why on 25th June 1931, all leaders, I am teaching chronologically so you can easily understand, all leaders of Indian National Congress were released. All leaders of Indian National Congress, including Gandhiji, were released unconditionally. All leaders of Congress Working Committee, rather than not just all leaders, rather all leaders of Congress Working Committee. All leaders of Congress Working Committee, including Gandhiji, were released unconditionally by the government as part of that goodwill gesture. So first thing is this. Once they were released, then the negotiations started between the British and the Congress, between the Viceroy and the Gandhiji and other people involved, to reach a settlement, to reach a pact. And then this pact was reached, which is called Gandhi-Irwin Pact. As part of that negotiation, as part of that settlement, a pact was reached which was called Gandhi-Irwin Pact. So after 25th Jan 1931, negotiations started, and on 5th March 1931, Gandhi-Irwin Pact was signed. On 5th of March 1931, Gandhi-Irwin Pact sign हो गया. ठीक है, अब गांधी इरविन पैक्ट साइन हुआ तो देयर मस्ट हैव बीन सम टर्म्स ऑफ एंगेजमेंट इन दिस, कुछ तो कंडीशंस रहे होंगे अकॉर्डिंग टू विच दे हैव टू एंगेज। तो क्या कंडीशंस थे गांधी इरविन पैक्ट के, पहला तो हम ये समझेंगे। सेकेंड थिंग, was everyone happy with this pact? Were there any people in the Congress itself who were not happy with this? So we'll see that also. तो पहले देखते हैं कि गांधी इरविन पैक्ट में क्या कंडीशंस थे, what were the terms of engagement, what were the conditions in this. First condition was Congress to withdraw, civil disobedience movement, Congress to suspend rather civil disobedience movement or discontinue. So basically rather than withdraw you write discontinue. Congress to discontinue civil disobedience movement and participate where? In second round table conference. क्योंकि ब्रिटिश को समझ में आ गया था कि कांग्रेस हैज टू बी देयर इन द नेक्स्ट राउंड टेबल कॉन्फ्रेंस. तो फर्स्ट कंडीशन वाज दिस. सेकेंड कंडीशन वाज दैट immediate release of all political prisoners not involved in violence. This was another condition put forward by Congress, which was accepted. Yes, Rohit. It was 5th March 1931. So immediate release of all political prisoners who were not involved in violence to be released immediately. Next condition was remission of all fines. British had imposed fines on lot of people who were involved in this civil disobedience movement, who were breaking laws, who were not giving revenue and other thing, rent. So remission of all fines not collected yet. Remission of all fines not collected yet, immediate release of all political prisoners not involved in violence, then return of confiscated land, then is return of confiscated lands not yet sold, distributed. Then another condition was lenient treatment to all government servants who had resigned. Lenient treatment to all government servants who resigned during civil disobedience movement. So first condition was the Congress to discontinue, and then other conditions were these which were accepted by the British. These conditions were accepted by the British, that yes, we will release all prisoners, all fines will be given back, all lands will be given back, there will be lenient treatment to all government servants who had resigned. Then there was another condition that since it all started with salt, so right to villages on coastal areas to make salt for own consumption. See, this was another win. Why? Because the CDM started with the breaking of salt law itself. So right was given to villagers on coastal areas to make salt for own consumption. This was another right. In addition to that, there was one condition which was not agreed. Congress also wanted this the hanging basically three people, Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev and Rajguru, they were going to be hanged, and they were going to be hanged when? In March itself, on 24th of March. So this was also one condition which was not agreed by the British, because they were hanged even before their date, that is on 23rd March 1931 itself. These three were hanged till death. Congress also want that their hanging should be stopped, but that was not agreed by the British. So that was one thing which was not agreed. In addition to that, as I was telling you, Nehru was not happy. Jawaharlal Nehru was not happy with the way things were happening, and he was sad that why this Gandhi-Irwin Pact is happening and why we are suspending or we are discontinuing the civil disobedience movement. So he said that CDM ended not with a bang but with a whimper. So basically, to voice his dissent against this Gandhi-Irwin Pact, Nehru said that CDM ended not with a bang but with a whimper. So they were not all who were happy with all these things. After this Gandhi-Irwin Pact, as I was telling you, after this Gandhi-Irwin Pact on 25th Jan 1931, on 23rd March 1931, another event happened. As I told you, on 23rd March 1931, another event happened when revolutionaries, the great freedom fighters, they were hanged till death. Against this background, from 25th to 31st March 1931, Karachi session happened. Karachi session of Congress. Karachi session of Congress happened. When going for the Karachi session of Congress, since these three freedom fighters, these three revolutionaries were recently hanged, and Congress was not able to stop that, Gandhi was unable to negotiate that with the British, people were not happy with the Congress. People were even angry with the Gandhiji. When Gandhiji was going to Karachi to attend this Congress session, black flags were shown to him. People protested against him because they were angry that why they were unable to negotiate the suspension of their hanging, suspension of their death from the British. So on 25 to 31st March 1931, what happened was Karachi session. And in Karachi session, who was the president? Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. President was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. What this session did? Two things were done in this session. One was, in this session, Gandhi-Irwin Pact was endorsed. So first thing was Gandhi-Irwin Pact was endorsed. Second thing, what happened? Second thing what happened is a program dealing with fundamental rights and national economic program. So a resolution dealing with fundamental rights and national economic program was adopted in this Karachi session. So a resolution on fundamental rights and national economic program was adopted by the Congress. So one resolution and another, this pact was endorsed by the Congress. That was the achievement of Karachi session, which happened from 25th to 31st March 1931. And who was the president? Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel was the president. After this, as we were discussing, second roundtable conference happened. Where happened? Simply in London it will happen. What was the timing? It will start from September. It will start from September. So in between one more thing happened, and that thing was on 26th April 1931. This is important for prelims, as such not important. Viceroy got replaced. Viceroy Irwin got replaced by Lord Wellington. So Wellington replaced whom? Irwin. This was another development which happened after Karachi session. We will see this Wellington, he was more ruthless towards the Congress, and we will see how he tried to repress the civil disobedience movement, which was again launched. Now we will focus on second roundtable conference. So if we see second roundtable conference, it happened, as I told you, from September 1931 to December 1931. So second roundtable conference happened during this time. Same, what was the place? London. Who chaired? Ramsay MacDonald. Who chaired? Ramsay MacDonald. Now, as I told you, who all participated? In first roundtable conference, there were only around 90 delegates. But in this roundtable conference, with participation of Congress, the number of participants increased and it reached around 150. So lot of delegates participated in second roundtable conference. Lot of issues were discussed, lot of discussions happened in second roundtable conference. So if we see the participation, as we saw in the first, similarly all parties will be represented here. The most important was Congress, and who represented Congress? Gandhiji. Gandhiji was the sole representative of Congress. This is also very interesting. Only one people from Congress attended second roundtable conference, and that was Gandhiji, nobody else. In addition to that, as I told you, Muslim League, who will go? Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Aga Khan, these were the leaders who will go. Then Hindu Mahasabha, then depressed class led by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar will be represented. One more addition here was women. And who was leading the women delegates? Sarojini Naidu was leading. This can be another question, that in second roundtable conference, women, the section of women was represented by Sarojini Naidu. So Muslim League, Hindu Mahasabha, depressed, women, then Indian Liberal Party, as I have been telling you, represented by Tej Bahadur Sapru. So lot of people participated in this. In addition to that, Justice Party from South India, it also participated. Then other communities like Sikh, they were also represented in second round table conference. So participation in second round table conference was a lot. In addition to that, princely states will be obviously there. Princely states will be there. There were more than 20 delegates from princely states, and overall if we see, more than 150 delegates participated in second round table conference. So you can see clearly the difference between first round table conference and second round table conference. From 90 to more than 150, the participation, the representation was huge, and so a lot of issues were discussed in second round table conference. In fact, Gandhiji was persuaded to attend this second round table conference. Gandhiji was persuaded, as I told you, Gandhi-Irvin Pact happened. He was persuaded to attend this second round table conference on 3 principles. First principle was the principle of federation. Second was the responsible government, the future government, how it should be in India, what kind of responsible government British is going to give to the country, and third was the issue of reservation, for the minorities, for the untouchables, or the, rather you write, depressed classes. So on these 3 issues, on these 3 vague issues, Gandhiji had been persuaded to attend the second round table conference, and while discussing this, negotiations failed. You must be curious that why this negotiation failed. Because Dr. B.R. Ambedkar had demanded the issue of separate electorate for the depressed classes, and Gandhiji was not ready for that. Gandhiji's objection was that this will divide the Hindus forever. This will be a permanent divide in the Hindu society, and the untouchables, the depressed, they will never be able to integrate with the Hindu society. And so Gandhiji was not in favor of the separate electorate. But then you must be thinking, what is separate electorate? What is joint electorate? And why Gandhiji against this? If we see separate electorate, if we see the election system now also seats are reserved for SC/ST candidates in the election. But in those reserved seats, all people are voting, whether they are SC/ST or not, whether they are Hindus, Muslims, Christians, everybody vote. That is the system of joint electorate. In separate electorate, what happens, that in those seats where untouchables are in majority, only untouchables can vote, only depressed class can vote. Candidate will be also from depressed class. There can be multiple candidates, but who can vote? Only the depressed classes can vote. The voting rights for the other people will not be given. The voting right for the, ठीक है, हिंदी में भी करेंगे, don't worry, हिंदी वाले चैनल पर हिंदी में भी करेंगे. तो जो voting right है वो, that will not be given to the depressed classes. That was the scheme of separate electorate. So Gandhi ji इसके खिलाफ थे. Gandhi ji was against this because he knew that if seats are reserved for the scheduled caste or the depressed, only depressed people can vote, then they will completely get segregated from the Hindu society. And that's why in second round table conference, negotiations failed on the issue of separate electorate. Why? Because already by this time, Muslims had got separate electorate. Already Anglo-Indians, Europeans, lot of minorities has already got Sikh. All these had already got the separate electorate, and so Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was also asking for separate electorate for the Dalits, but Gandhiji was not ready for this, and that's why the negotiations broke down. When the negotiations broke down, Gandhiji returned empty-handed. So when the negotiations broke down, negotiations failed, Gandhiji returned empty-handed. खाली हाथ वापस आ गए. Now you must be curious, when he returned empty-handed, what he did next? This we will see in the next class, ki what he did after coming from London. I will be coming live on 6 o'clock only for history classes, and I will increase the frequency. The timing for classes will be little less, 40-45 minutes, but frequency will be more. I will be covering every alternate day, maybe every 2 days, 3 days, but we will try to cover this Dandi to Azadi more regularly in less amount of time. Correct? So in next class we will see what Gandhiji did after coming from London, what happened in third roundtable conference, and then we will take this series forward. Thank you everybody. If you have any doubt, any query related to this, feel free to ask. अगर आपके पास कोई भी डाउट है पूछ लीजिए. I think there is no doubt, no issues. Thank you. Thank you for joining, staying with Tathastu. We will coming live again. Thank you.